Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Perspective. And today on State of the Nation, we look at two issues. First, cancer, and also later on we'll be discussing matters, the war on graft. Actually, less than a week, we've lost two leaders to cancer. And to put these figures into perspective, according to Global CAN, World Health Organization International Agency for Research on Cancer, approximately 47,887 people get the disease annually in Kenya, while 32, that's where the disturbing statistics lie, 32,987 die from it yearly. Well, to put these two issues into perspective, it's an honor and privilege to be hosting a veteran politician and also a former senator, Madam Elizabeth Ongoro.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Now, looking at the statistics and what we are seeing, today, shocking news. 3 days ago, shocking news. Not to mention Kenyans that are dying that we don't know about. Should cancer, as we speak, be declared a national disaster?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. But before I answer, allow me to lead the nation in a 2-minute silence in honor of our two great leaders who have succumbed to cancer this week. Honorable Ken Okoth, MP, Kibra constituency, a very great leader, a young man, and one of the greatest women who have now succumbed early today, a lady who we were all looking at as somebody who has already been a role model and made it possible, and by statement, yes, that it is possible for leaders, women leaders, to upscale. Indeed. So let us just give them that respect. Thank you very much. Now back to your question. Indeed, on my way to KBC today, I was just trying to imagine the number of people that we have lost to cancer. And remember that all those numbers, especially when those figures that you have, are figures that have been documented.
Yes.
That means you and me, who might have access to some level of reasonable healthcare, who have access to diagnosis, and then who then know that what we are suffering from is cancer. Those are the figures that we have. Yeah. But that leads us to the disturbing question of how many Kenyans die without even the authorities realizing that they actually died of cancer. Yes. Because one, they did not either go to hospital or something, or they went too late to a health facility which did not have the capacity to diagnose, or there was a misdiagnosis because of the facilities, and so on and so forth. So in my own opinion, those figures that we are holding, even as a nation, could be just 1%, yes, of what we're dealing with. Indeed. And now, having said that, if we are dealing with an ailment or something that is having the capacity to attack almost 10% of our population, of all ages, of, regardless of age, profession, and anything, it would only be in order that cancer should be declared a national disaster, but not just the declaration. It should be declared a national disaster, but with a commensurate budgetary allocation, not just to counties, but through a structured format from the national government that ensures, one, early screening, no, before even screening, enough civic education. The kind of intensive civic education, yes, that we conduct even during elections. Just elections that are taking us through either a referendum or something. Yes. That kind of intensive and extensive civic education. Two, facilities that are availed, not just in the hospitals, but at the constituency level and the ward level, so that all Kenyans can be screened. I've seen very good strategies given to diseases like polio, where we even have people going door to door. Why wouldn't we treat something like cancer with that kind of urgency and importance? At some level, when HIV was, I think, really becoming a disaster, I saw centers that were put up at the ward level, in primary schools, in every available facility for voluntary screening. And people were enticed, were encouraged, were given the privacy to screen. Why wouldn't we decentralize the screening of cancer? Because death is death. And now cancer seems to have surpassed all other diseases. So we can, as a nation, not just talk about it, not just have wishful thinking, but actually give it the commensurate budgetary allocation through the health ministry, and for those that have been decentralized to the counties, let the counties get specific funding to ensure civic education, early screening, and appropriate treatment. But not just that, even NHIF must now be relooked at, so that not only is it, like now I think it has been upgraded to be able to take care of part of the bills. But when you're dealing with Mama Mboga from Siaya County, from Kwale, from Kaloleni, somewhere. Oh, I mean, even if it is 50,000 and you have already paid for her 25, where do you expect her to get the other 25? That now will bring even a bigger problem, because you're going to treat her halfway. You're going to diagnose and then start the treatment and stop the treatment where the 25,000 or whatever amount provided for legally ends. Then you send her home, and that means she is already halfway treated. When the thing now recurs, it boomerangs to such an extent. But apart from that, that also takes me to a very critical issue. According to me, health facilities, the infrastructure that holds the entire health facility does not stop with what I can talk about is like the infrastructure of having hospitals and screening facilities. We must now connect it to our education system. We must ensure that enough students are enrolled to study medicine, but not just medicine, to become oncologists, because that is again where the problem is. You can have the facilities, you can have the money, you can have everything, but if we only have 30 oncologists or 20 in the entire nation of 53 million people, then what are you talking about? It means you will leave it to nurses to misdiagnose or do whatever else. So we must also tie the health facilities and the funding and civic education to the education system.
Now, you have been a legislator before. Should laws be amended perhaps to include what you've talked about, early screening, the treatment, and also perhaps even to help screening facilities in the counties? We have very few, and they are concentrated here in the capital, Nairobi.
Precisely. That's what I'm talking about. We must start from legislation to implementation. Because without legislation, then you are operating within a vacuum that is not legal. So this framework must be legislated. We pass laws that make it mandatory, for example, that every county must have a cancer screening center, not just screening, but commensurate with an oncologist, with, and you know, even before we train our own, it's just about, I really want to talk about budgetary allocation, because with enough money, you can attract doctors from anywhere, from any side part of this globe, to come and work in this country, if we attach the importance that needs to be attached. So laws must be amended to deal with early detection, the process of screening and treatment, and not just treatment for the sake of treatment, effective treatment, tied to early detection, tied to the education system that gives us enough oncologists, tied to the budgetary allocation that allocates enough funding to give us the right drugs, tied to NHIF for to take care of those of us who are not able to give themselves an insurance policy. So when we have that comprehensive approach, that is intensive and extensive, then we are able we are going to slaughter this monster.
Let's shift focus. One of the leading causes is unhealthy living, unhealthy diet, and sometimes sedentary lifestyle that we are living, and most of us who are living in big towns, big contributor. Even obesity is also a very huge contributor. Yeah, but I would take it that obesity would contribute to just less than 1% of Kenyans, because most Kenyans are living below the poverty line. So they don't even have enough to eat. So talk less of eating until they are obese or whatever. But yes, there's a small clique of people in Kenya who are on the first lane. And this is where we even find legislators. This is where we find CEOs. This is where we find people who are managing companies and all that. Their lifestyle is such that they are so busy taking care of everything and everybody, and sometimes they don't have time for themselves. I want to talk from my own experience, being a legislator at one point in the ministry, you know, as an assistant minister and an elected member of parliament, at the same time trying to run my family, at the same time trying to keep up with politics. I can assure you, I was registered in 3, 4, or 5 clubs, I mean health clubs or whatever, which clubs my monies would go the full length, the 1-year payments without me even visiting once, or just making an appearance where you're supposed to be in that facility for 3 hours. For a whole year, you visit twice for 30 minutes, because there's always an emergency. So the truth is, even to the leaders, I talk to the leaders, you know, and I've been there. I'm one of them. I'm a culprit. Health first. Take time off to do what is right with your health. You know, periodic checkups. Yes. Because life will move on, whether you are there or not. And for you to give maximum to your constituents, to the nation or anybody, you have to be at your best. But the society pushes, especially politicians. Yes. What is required of us is a little too heavy. And if you're not careful, you risk losing attention to yourself, towards yourself, even for 1 hour in 1 week, because every time you want to attend to the need of yet another constituent, of yet something else which is an emergency. So yes, even leaders must be encouraged to create time. But yes, there's another category of people who are leading sedentary lifestyles. Sedentary as in, you know, from vehicle to office, back to vehicle, 3 hours in the traffic jam, in the morning 2 hours traffic jam, you arrive home late. Arrive home late, too tired, go to bed, and on and on. Sedentary lifestyle. But also, we have the majority of Kenyans who are exposed to a lot of environmental hazards, which I was just reading something on my way here, is a leading cause of cancer. And I was shocked to note that even things like welding, you know, things like living next to exposed waste, you know, which is the norm in our country. You know, these lifestyle issues, you know,
being in an environment where some people are smoking, you then become a secondary smoker, or is that what they call it?
And even others excessive drinking.
Yes, even being in the, in a jam where all manner of vehicles are giving out fumes that you end up inhaling, which are very unhealthy. So yes, lifestyle, leading cause of cancer.
Let's shift focus. My director tells me we need to pick up the pace. The war on corruption. We've seen in the last 1 week, we've seen something that people haven't seen in a long, long time. We haven't seen a cabinet secretary being arraigned in court. We haven't seen a governor arraigned in court this year. But we've seen those things happen. Is the war on graft slowly gaining pace?
From where I see it, I want to state, one, the fight against corruption, devoid of witch hunt, devoid of propaganda, devoid of incorrect information, or just a package of punishment to a people, to a person, to anybody, will lead us somewhere. Secondly, I'm impressed that now we can see some, tangible outcomes from the process. One, as I said earlier in another interview, we are now seeing a good coordination between the ESCC, the DCI, the DPP, and all these arms are coordinating well. The blame game has stopped. That's a good sign. They're coordinating. They don't need to cooperate, because if they cooperate, then that is in itself injustice. They don't need to cooperate. They need to just coordinate the way they are doing. Yes, arrests, good. But can we also, as I said earlier in another interview, have timelines? We don't want cases that are lasting 20 years. The Dongo case just ended yesterday. Was it last week? After 13 years, 14 years, isn't it? I mean, really, if you have a case that is going for 14 years, 15 years, at the end of it all, even those who took the case to court become, some events are overtaken with time, and some people, some witnesses have lost interest or died or decided it's not worth it or whatever. You lose crucial evidence the longer the case takes. If we can do like election petitions, which are also quite demanding, presidential petition, quite demanding. I saw the kind of volumes of documents.
And they're all concluded.
And we have a timeline. Let us put timelines on each corruption case. Back to our issue of cancer. If we had money, enough money, to do all these things, then we would have enough infrastructure to control or treat cancer, isn't it? Now, this same money is what is being looted by individuals or a group of people. And in 2007, we had people who were taken to the ICC for crimes against humanity. In my own thinking, these are crimes that lead to the loss of lives of human beings. Now, if we look at corruption as something that leads to loss of life and classify it as a crime against humanity, because when you steal 50 billion from Kenyans or 100 billion, and if only you sit somewhere and think of how many screening machines we would buy with 100 billion, and how much medication, and how many people would be trained as oncologists, then really, if we classify you as somebody who is committing a crime against humanity, we will not be very far from the truth. So if we start looking at corruption with that kind of, from that point of view, with that seriousness, and with commensurate, serious
we definitely
change Kenya. We will change Kenya.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but just one quick question. Where have you been? The last time we heard of you was way back in the election. Where have you been?
Oh my God.
Wind up?
Which country are you staying in? The people's president and the president of the nation told us, Kenyans, to stop politicking. And so, as a law-abiding Kenyan citizen, I decided to go slow, and just appear once in a while, like now.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I'm around.
Yes.
Just not
very active in politics at the moment.
You know, you can be active.
Yes.
I've only changed tact, but we were instructed not to be too active.
Indeed.
So I am just doing what I was told to do.
Thank you so much, Madam, for coming. Indeed,
Yes.
that's where I put a cap on perspective this week. My name is Bentro Enjoy. Back to more news. We headed for business news.